Hello, I'm Esther Gido-Ewart. It's Monday, February 27th. This is Africa 54. Nigeria's Electoral Commission announces state-by-state results from national elections amid complaints of irregularities. We'll have a live report from Abuja. U.S. First Lady Jill Biden calls for democracy and women's empowerment during her trip to 2 African countries. All this and much more on today's Africa 54. Nigeria's Independent National Electoral Commission has started announcing state-by-state results in the presidential election. Final poll results are not expected for several days. VOA's Paul Ndiho has more.
The announcement of the first early results from Nigeria's closely observed presidential election came late Sunday. Peter Obi of the Labour Party, whose campaign attracted young people and urban voters angry at corrupt politics, garnered the most votes in the commercial hub of Lagos, Nigeria's largest city. Obi received over 582,000 votes ahead of 572,000 votes of former Lagos Governor Bola Tinubu of the governing All Progressive Congress Party, according to the Electoral Commission data. Lagos was previously Tinubu's main stronghold. Prominent opposition leader Atiku Abubakar, People's Democratic Party, secured 75,000 votes. INEC says the ruling All Progressive Congress Party's candidate Bola Tinubu garnered the most votes in southwest Nigeria's Ikiti at the National Tallying Center in the capital Abuja. The vote was primarily peaceful despite some cases of violence, delays and technical glitches. Many citizens stayed late at many locations to observe the vote count and protect the ballots.
Expecting that there will be a positive change, no matter how it is, no matter how difficult it is now. My hope is that there will be a positive change.
I hope that everything will change. Nigeria will become a better place, and our kids, our children, they will have a better tomorrow.
The slow uploading of results online stirred up fears of electoral malpractice in a country with a history of vote rigging.
The populace, we have a change idea. A lot of crime in the system because of hardship. Look at now, we don't have any money. I don't know why they muddled up things. This time, election is coming. Financial crunch. Nothing is working. People are suffering. Yet, they insisted because they want a new Nigeria.
Former Sierra Leonean president and the head of the ECOWAS Presidential Election Observer Mission, Ernest Bai Koroma, says irregularities marred the voting process.
The mission, however, noted that the logistics delay in the commencement of the voting process in some of the polling stations, as well as some technical challenges experienced with the BVAS machines, affected the efficiency of the process in some areas.
18 political parties nominated presidential and vice presidential candidates. The winning candidate must meet the standard required by the Nigerian Constitution to obtain a 25% support in at least 24 states. If not, the top 2 candidates must compete in a runoff vote 21 days later. Paul Ndiho, VOA News, Washington.
Now for the latest on Nigeria's vote counting, VOA's Peter Clotty joins us live from Abuja. Good evening, Peter.
Good evening, Esther. How are you?
Good. How are Nigerians reacting to this slow vote counting by INEC?
Well, Esther, a lot of people that I have spoken with today are displeased with the slow coalition process at the International Conference Center here in Abuja. Some of them are even speculating that the slow nature could be as a result of people trying to attempt to manipulate the election results from the various fields. And a lot of the opposition political parties have been calling on INEC to expedite the process of releasing the election results, because they think that the more delay, the more people have the opportunity to manipulate the election results. So these are some of the issues that a lot of Nigerians are expressing.
Peter,
Some of them
we
are
understand
saying
that also, right. We understand that some opposition members and candidates are also concerned about the release of the figures by INEC. What do you know?
Well, as a matter of fact, just about a few minutes ago, the representative of opposition parties at the coalition center walked out protesting what they said were voter irregularities. That they said the chairperson of the Electoral Commission, Professor Mahmoud Yakub, has refused to answer. But the professor said that if you have any issues, those issues should have been resolved at the individual polling stations. You don't come to litigate your issues right at the coalition center. The coalition center is not the place for it. You should have brought it up, because the results being announced have been collated, have been certified by agents of the political parties at the polling stations before they were uploaded to the system to be announced. So it was back and forth, and these are representatives of the political parties, including the People's Democratic Party, the main party, the Labour Party, walked out of the coalition center in front of what they describe as unfair ways of the Electoral Commission or INEC from following its process. They said they deviated, so they are not pleased with how the system has been manipulated so far.
Peter, thank you. I have to leave it there because the line is not very clear, but thank you so much. VOA's Peter Clotty reporting live for us from Abuja. VOA's reporter on the scene, Peter Clotty in Abuja, also spoke to a voter about the election.
So, Madam, tell us your full name.
My name is Obianuju Salawe, Mrs.
All right, so Mrs. Salawemi, how has been the process for you today? Voting is officially over in this precinct.
Yes. You know, it's been, how will I say, it's been okay. This polling unit, they started a little bit behind schedule, but when they started, everything went smoothly. And I personally stayed till the end because I wanted my vote to count.
Did they count the vote in front of you?
Yes, they did. They counted everything, verified everything in front of me, yes.
Did everybody who was supposed to vote and who had come to vote able to vote in spite of the late start?
Everybody was attended to. Everybody that came to vote that is eligible voted.
You said this is your first time of voting.
Yes.
What motivated you to come out this time to vote?
This time around, I have to do something different. You know, before now, I didn't have a voter's card. It was so difficult to get one before now. But with the way things were going, I just had to push a little bit harder, and I got my card and I voted.
So did INEC make the process a little bit simpler, or was it cumbersome as well?
It's actually better this time around. From what I've heard before now, it's actually better now. They did a better job now, at least here where I voted.
VOA's Peter Clotty speaking to a Nigerian voter. As vote counting continues, I'm joined live via Skype from Washington by Sunday Bitrus, president of Zumunta Association USA, an organization dedicated to conflict resolution, public engagement, and community participation. Mr. Bitrus, welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you, Esther.
First of all, your reaction to the slow vote count and all of these issues of vote buying. You know, we've heard about that, and including some variants in some parts of Nigeria. What is your reaction to this?
Yes, generally what we are experiencing here and through our observations so far, I would say that we are actually shocked, really, with regards to the use of the technology that is supposed to ensure credible elections in Nigeria. We have seen from our own experience illegible results from the IREV website, which I also registered for as part of our responsibilities and civic duties towards Nigeria.
Sunday, given Nigeria's numerous concerns, what should the incoming president address first?
Fundamentally, we know that pretty much all the candidates have campaigned on the basis of wanting to improve the economy and the livelihoods of people. But you cannot do that in an insecure situation. The security situation across the country has bedeviled a lot of people from doing what they need to do, and in terms of them being able to carry out their economic activities on a regular basis. So that is one of the fundamental things that needs to be addressed by all and sundry by the next government.
And what do you think would be the major policies that the new incoming occupant of the State House should address first?
Beyond addressing the security issue, there is a need to address human capital. And that human capital is fundamentally a large percentage of them are the youths of Nigeria. They need to be engaged, they need to be given the platform, they need to have infrastructure to be able to develop and continue to expand on their capacities, because we have a lot of them and Nigeria has that potential. And the next government needs to do that in order to move the country forward.
Sunday, if you can give us a very brief summary of the first three top candidates and what is their track record?
Right, but well, as we know, pretty much all the top three candidates, Peter Obi, for example, we know he used to be a member of PDP, but again, he is presenting himself as someone who is having a new idea for new Nigeria, and a lot of the youths and progressives are with him in that he is going to bring in new ideas to move the country forward. Ballot, we also are fully aware of his capacities in terms of his handling of Lagos and his antecedents over the past several years in terms of both building leaders and engaging with people across board. He also is intricately linked with the current government. So we do know that he is experienced, but he is considered to a large extent as part of the old school. Then, of course, we're talking about Atiku Abubakar. Atiku Abubakar by himself is someone who is also quite experienced, both as a civil servant and at the same time someone who has worked in the private sector. So we expect that they are going to bring in either of the candidates are all coming up with ideas. But again, we know that Peter Obi is one of the major ones who possess some of the new ideas that people are lining up for. But again, I will not discount any of the candidates because on their own merits, they bring in great experience for the development of Nigeria.
So there are a couple of issues of violence in Lagos and other places. I wonder how this might impact the vote Sunday, but I think we may have to leave it there for now. We'll catch up at some other time. Sunday, thank you very much for your insight.
Thank you.
Sunday Bitrus is president of Zumunta Association USA. First Lady Jill Biden is back in the U.S. after wrapping up visits to Namibia and Kenya. During her stay in Africa, she emphasized democracy and women's empowerment. But analysts say the First Lady willed only soft power and that African nations may not be as keen to change as the U.S. would like. VOA White House correspondent Anita Paul reports.
First Lady Jill Biden ended her visit to Namibia on a hopeful note, stressing the power of young people in a nation where youth unemployment hovers at an alarming 40%.
Each generation inherits the world in their own time. We often tell young people that you are the future, and it's true. But sometimes that message can sound like wait for some far-off finish line that makes you wiser or more powerful. There are problems that you can solve now, and you have the gifts to offer the world now.
It has been a whirlwind 3 days for the First Lady, who landed in Namibia Wednesday and used her time to focus on women's empowerment, children, and education. She also praised the nation's vibrant democracy, established and run by the same party since independence in 1990.
I'm proud to be standing here, standing with a strong democracy, and as Monica said yesterday, a young democracy working together. As Joe said at the summit, African voices, African leadership, and African innovation are all critical to addressing the most pressing global challenges and realizing the vision we all share. A world that is free.
But this gentle nudge towards Western democratic ideals may not persuade governments to loosen their deep ties to the East, said Professor Ndumba Kamwanya of the University of Namibia. Like many African nations, Namibia was supported by the former Soviet Union in its struggle for independence. And the war memorial Biden visited shortly after landing, and the imposing State House, were built by a North Korean company.
Of course, officially they said they don't want to choose a side, but deeply, I think, from an analytical perspective, I think that they are leaning towards the Russian position.
Still, Catherine Jellison, professor of U.S. women's history and gender history at Ohio University, says Joe Biden's soft touch could steady U.S. relations with African nations.
I think it's important that some high-profile member of Biden world visit Africa right now, because we need to shore up our friendship with African nations and our relationships with African nations at a time when the Chinese have an eye on cultivating more of those relationships. So it's an excellent idea if we want to maintain a good working relationship with African nations, that we put out that friendly hand.
Kamanya says, wait and see.
Also, it will depend on the outcomes of that engagement in terms of what other initiative that will follow suit after her visit. So I think it's important that in a day or 2 days after she leaves, it will become clearer in terms of the concreteness of that engagement.
Biden will spend 2 more days in Kenya promoting women's empowerment and addressing children's issues in the hunger crisis, again afflicting the Horn of Africa. Anita Powell, VOA News, Nairobi, Kenya.
Following Jill Biden's visit to Kenya, VOA spoke to several residents to get their thoughts on what her trip meant to them.
The empowering of young mothers and girls, this one was good. And she even told us the small chamas that we have here and there, keep bringing 10 shillings, and we put it in our place, and then it becomes our profit after maybe 3 months. This one will help our mothers and even young girls. And also she said of asking these other countries to join hands in bringing those support to these young mothers, because in Kenya we have issues. We don't have jobs for our mothers. Many of us have gone to school, but we don't have works. So if we could have that support, there's just small support, we can even start generating small generating income, things for us to be doing. It will really help us. Thank you.
Coming is a blessing. We appreciate, but we need the fruits. We know America, we know other countries, we know them. When they visit a country, we get the fruits, changes, so our people can be more effort to add on that.
It was very good, and this is how to encourage the women to start on their own, to be firm, to say no to abuse, and go and move forward to the development of this country, because we should not discriminate. Because she's a woman, she cannot do this. But she came and showed us. Women, they can do more. Women are capable. Women are understandable. Women should be taken to school to get education. Because everything, education is the backbone of development.
Yeah, it will really help. Like the one I've talked about, the contribution of 10 shillings. Like for us, we don't normally use 10 shillings to like we save 10 shillings. The 10 shillings you use for buying small things, mandazis, like her coming and talking about chamas, the small contributions. Like it has empowered us a lot. We'll start saving that 10 shillings by the end of the month, starting a small business, starting a small thing. Yeah, it will really help us.
Reaction from Jill Biden's visit to Kenya. Still to come, an update on the budget for the peacekeeping mission in Congo. We'll be right back.
In times of change, when the world seems uncertain and what we hear doesn't reflect what we see, we seek the truth. When we are told only part of the story, we lose trust. In moments of crisis, our dreams, hopes, and wishes for a better tomorrow depends on a free press. At Voice of America, we bring you the stories that people take risks to see. We connect the world and unite it with truth. At Voice of America, we show you the whole picture.
In other news, UN aid groups say the UN's peacekeeping mission that is operating in the Democratic Republic of Congo's North Kivu province has suspended its flights between Goma and Bunia following Friday's attack on their helicopter. The Italian Coast Guard continued its search Monday of the sea and beaches for bodies following a shipwreck off Calabria. The death toll in the accident has risen to at least 62. The charity Save the Children says it's supporting survivors. And the UN is reporting that over 1 million Somalis have been displaced by drought. Approximately 100,000 refugees have fled into Kenya, according to the UN. The Dadaab refugee camp in Kenya has added at least 6,000 Somalis since December 31st. David Otto Endele, director of the Geneva-based Center for African Security and Strategic Studies, says a 2023 hike to a record $2.25 billion in the UN budget for Congo is an indication the peacekeeping mission in the country is struggling. VOA's Ignatius Anor sought to find out if that figure is justified.
A record $2.25 billion. That's the United Nations 2023 budget, which it says it needs in order to give badly needed relief to displaced persons in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. The UN blames the major offensive launched by M23 rebels last year for the high figure.
Au niveau financier, at the financial level, the 2022 plan came up to $1.88 billion. This year, it will come up to $2.25 billion because of the increase in vulnerable people and the cost of inflation.
Plus vulnérables, plus les coûts de l'inflation. Le Marquis says the budget will cover hikes in operational costs due to skyrocketing global prices exacerbated by the war in Ukraine. He says the funds are specifically for food, water, shelter, and medicine. David Otto Endele, director of the Geneva-based Center for African Security and Strategic Studies, tells VOA the budget hike is justified, but adds it confirms the UN's inability to deliver peace to the Congolese people.
The big question would be, after decades, of existing in that region, why is the budget increasing? And does that mean that, the UN mission in that region continues to fail? Does that mean that instead of a reduction in the protection of civilians in terms of the reduction in humanitarian activities, there is instead an increase? So it's a juxtaposition of, first of all, indicating that the UN mission is getting worse.
Last year, the UN had planned to spend $1.88 billion for the Congo. Only 48% of that goal was met, reaching only 5 million of the nearly 9 million people targeted. The security analyst said the risk to locals continues to be higher, while asking donors to ask the big question.
It does demonstrate that the risk to civilians is higher, which of course is not good for any of the agencies that operate in that region or for the Congolese themselves. And even those who are donating to the UN will have to ask those big questions in terms of, how successful is this mission in DRC Congo? Do they need some kind of a re-strategizing of the UN mission? or does the UN mandate, require some rejigging, as I call it, in this year to come?
Congo's army is struggling to resolve a conflict that has caused rocky relations with neighboring Rwanda. Congo has accused Rwanda of backing the M23 rebels, but Kigali continuously rejects those accusations. The increase in insecurity in the region is worsening the ongoing humanitarian crisis. With the recent M23 rebel offensive in Central Africa's largest nation, concerns continue to mount over its December presidential and parliamentary elections. Ignatius Ano, VOA News, Washington.
And that wraps up our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, thanks for watching.
We do applaud the continued steady progress towards implementing the key elements of the cessation of hostilities agreement, as well as the positive role of the AU's Joint Monitoring, Verification and Compliance team. We are aware that Eritrean forces are beginning to withdraw from Ethiopia. We reiterate the call that emanated from the talks in South Africa for the withdrawal of all foreign forces. The departure of Eritrean and other forces is crucial to achieving lasting peace, securing full humanitarian access, and ensuring the territorial integrity of Ethiopia.